Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Alexey, and today what we're gonna be doing is taking a look at Presonus Faderport 16 Part 2. So in our first part of our Faderport 16 video, we took a look at our first section of our Faderport 16. In our today's second part of our Faderport 16 video series, we're gonna be taking a look at our second section of our Faderport 16. So if you hit track button once, it will show you full names of your audio channels here on this displays. And right now you cannot see anything on this displays because of iPhone video quality, but right now we have here all the names of our audio channels. For instance, our first audio channel is called AD Metal Kick. Our second audio channel is called AD Evil Metal. Our third audio channel is called AD Kick, and so on. So if we hit track button once, we can see here on this displays full names of our audio channels. And if we hit track button for the second time, so here again on our displays, we can see short names of our audio channels. So for instance, right now our first audio channel is called only AD. Our second audio channel is called only AD. Our third audio channel is called ADK. Our fourth audio channel is called ADK. Our fifth audio channel is called Kick instead of Kick 1, and so on. Now let's hit our second button here, which is called Edit Plugins, and here on our first display we can see a menu, and in our menu we can see that on our first audio channel we have an equalizer plugin. So now let's hit our first select button here, and we are opening our equalizer here, which is FabFilter Pro Q3. Here we have low cut filter, and here we have high shelf. And right now here by using faders we can control settings of Pro Q3. So for instance, by moving our first fader, we can move our low cut filter. By moving our fader here, we can move our high shelf. By moving this fader here, we can add some gain to our high shelf, or we can remove some gain. By moving our fader here up, we're gonna be adding some gain, like plus 3 dB, like plus 6 dB. And by moving the same fader but down, we're gonna be decreasing our gain, like minus 3, minus 6, minus 9, and for instance minus 12. By moving this fader, we can engage our dynamic mode of our high shelf. So by moving this fader, we can engage our threshold for our dynamic mode. By moving this fader here, we can change the shape of our Q knob. By moving our last fader here, we can change the shape of our filter. Now let's hit our next button here, which is called Sends. And here, for instance, on our AD kick, we have kick reverb. And right now, when we are hitting our sense button here, we can see on our first display our kick reverb information, and we can change the value of our kick reverb by using our first fader. So right now we're adding a lot of reverb to our kick. Let's have a listen. And right now it sounds very boomy. And by moving our first fader down, we're controlling the amount of reverb on our kick. Now let's hit our next button here, which is called pan. And now we can use our faders to do some panning on our audio channels. So for instance, if we're gonna be moving our first fader, we're gonna be changing the panning on our first audio channel from left to right. If we're gonna be moving our second fader, we're gonna be changing the panning on our second audio channel. Again from left to right. If we're gonna be moving up and down our third fader here, we're gonna be changing panning for our third audio channel, which is called AD kick. Again from left to right. If after our pan button we're gonna hit our audio button here, so now we have panning only for a certain audio channel. So for instance, right now our second audio channel is highlighted, and here on our first display we have settings for our panning, and even if our second audio channel is highlighted, we're gonna be using our first fader to change panning settings for our second audio channel. So again, our second audio channel is highlighted here, but we're using our first fader to change panning settings for our second audio channel when we're hitting our audio button here. And for instance, we can choose any audio channel. For instance, let's choose this one. And again, our fifth audio channel is highlighted, but again we can use our first fader to change the panning for our fifth audio channel. Then after our audio button here, we have virtual instruments button, but for now I don't use any virtual instruments, so we're gonna skip this button and let's hit our next button, which is called bass. And after hitting our bass button here on our displays, we have names only for our basses. So for instance, our first display is called kick bass, our second display is called live snare sub, our third display is called snare bass, our next display is called tom sub, our next display is called drums bass, and so on. And right now when we are hitting our bass button here, we can use our faders to change volume for our basses. So for instance, if we are using our first fader here, and when we are moving our fader up and down, we are changing the volume for our kick sub. If we hit our pan button here, when our bus button is engaged. So right now we can again use our first fader, but to change the panning for our kick bus. Now let's hit our track button here, and right now we can use faders to change the volume of our buses. For instance, if we're going to be moving our second fader up and down, we're going to be changing the volume for our live snare sub. If we're going to be moving our next fader up and down, we're going to be changing the volume for our snare bass. If we're going to be moving our next fader here up and down, we're going to be changing the volume for our tom sub or for our tom bass. And if we're going to be moving our next fader here, we're going to be changing the volume for our drums bass. And so on. Next we have VCA button here, but in this very session I don't have any VCA channels, but in this case let's hit our shift button here and let's hit our VCA button here. And right now when our VCA button is glowing orange, so here on our displays we have our effects. For instance, on our first display we have kick reverb, on our second display we have snare reverb, on our third display we have vocal distortion, on our next display we have vocal octave, then we have some whisper effect, then we have reverb 1 for our vocals, then we have delay 1 for our vocals, and finally we have synth reverb. So when we're gonna be using our first fader for our kick reverb, it will be changing the volume of our kick reverb here. So in this case we can use VCA button when it glows orange for volume automation for our kick reverb effect. For instance, if we're gonna be moving our second fader up and down, we're gonna be changing the volume for our snare reverb. And again, we can use it for volume automation for our snare reverb. Then if we're gonna be moving this fader, our third fader up and down, we're gonna be changing the volume for our vocal distortion effect. Now let's hit our final button here, which is called All. After hitting our All button here, it returns to our main mixer window, if you can say so. So on our displays we can see again the names of our audio channels in our Studio One mixer. So we can use faders to adjust volume on our audio channels in Studio One. So right now we went through all buttons in our second section of Faderport 16, and right now you know how to use buttons in our second section of our Faderport 16 to speed up your workflow in any DAW, and in my case I'm using Studio One. Thank you so much for watching, I hope you like the video and I hope this video will be useful for you, and see you in our next video.